I'm Sam from Cultaholic, and this is Graded for Friday Night SmackDown, where I take a look at the show segment by segment and award each little bit of grade from A+ to F. I don't know why I did that. So this week is the go-home show for Elimination Chamber, and boy howdy, is there a hell of a lot of setup. It's just, ever since Bruce Pritchard came back, there's just so many segments. There's so many segments. And yes, before you point it out, there's crap on my hoodie, I know. It's just sort of a life lesson that I'm going to have to roll with. Picked the wrong hoodie up this morning, and yes, it's got a bleach stain in it. Don't wear things that you enjoy when you're bleaching your hair. But yeah, without any further ado, let's crack on with it. Talking about hit the intro. So we kick things off this week with an opening promo from Edge. And he's like, you know what? I've got a decision to make for Mania, and he's hyping it all up. And he says that Roman is probably being the smarter out of the two, you know, Roman and Drew, because Roman, he's got an opponent who's softened up, and it's going to be nice and easy for him to clean up at the end of Chamber. And then out comes Roman, Jay, and Paulie, of course, because he heard his name, down he comes. He's like bloody Beetlejuice. So he gets into the ring, and he's like, come on, Edge, man, I'm the only choice here. You gotta be real. Come on, I'm the only choice. You know, I'm the main eventer. And Edge is like, look, mate, you need me for the main event, not the other way around. He tells Roman to check his ego, and then out comes Sami Zayn, who's just running them both down for being disrespectful to him. He's like, you know, the company didn't even want me in the match, but I'm in the match, and, you know, I am a threat. I'm not somebody just to be looked over. Jay drops Sami with a thrust kick, and then Roman hands his title to Paul. And he puts his hands behind his back, so he's not going to hit Edge, and he walks forwards very slowly to Edge, leans in, and whispers something in his ear, and Edge looks deadly serious as Roman walks away. So this gets a B+. I like the tone here, I like the seriousness of Edge, and I like the perceived seriousness of the MacGuffin with Roman there, because Roman just lent into Edge. We don't know what he said. It was probably, if we're being honest, something about ending his career, I'd imagine, just, you know, ending it permanently. Edge looked very serious afterwards, and, you know, we're probably never going to find that out. It's the lockbox all over again. Maybe. We'll see. Sami was fun, but it just came a little bit from left field. But, you know, it makes sense. He's in and around it. It worked. Next up, we have the first match of the evening, which is Apollo Crews versus Nakamura. And Big E is at ringside on commentary on his lovely cream couch with his fridge, his little side table, his TV dinner, and his electric foot bath. I think that's what it's called. You know, one of those things where you put your feet into it and you put some Epsom salts in it and you watch your soaps and you get some nicely cleaned and massaged feet. One of those things. In a pre-match interview with Kayla as well, Apollo's like, you know what, I always respected Big E, but after last week it's very clear that E does not respect me. And then when we get into the match, both guys just bring it from the off. There's a flurry of strikes, a lot of back and forth, the pace is great, and it's just nice and level. Crews then sends Nakamura to the floor and launches him into Big E on the big cream couch and, you know, just ruins his dinner. He was just trying to have his tea. What are you doing? So he gets in Cruz's face, with Cruz even taking charge in the ring, but Nakamura eventually fights his way back up. Ultimately, Cruz attempts a military press. He's got Nakamura right the way up until Nakamura is able to roll him through into an armbar position, and then plant both shoulders at the same time, causing a pin. So Nakamura wins the match. And then post-bell, Cruz isn't done. He beats Nakamura down a bit. He beats him down, throws him to the outside, and then he grabs the ring steps. And this is where Big E's like, come on, man, just leave it alone, leave it alone. And then Big E puts himself in between Nakamura and Cruz with the steps. Cruz is like, all right, puts the steps down. The second Big E turns his back, picks him up, and lays him out. He launches the steps into the ring, he rolls Big E into the ring, and he's about to beat him down while the referee's sort of getting in the way. E rolls to the outside, and Cruz, who has a referee still pleading with him to just go to the back, just picks up the steps, holds them up high, and simply drops them over the edge of the ring. And the medical professionals sprint down to attend Big E. He is in a bad way. This gets a B+. I loved this. I absolutely loved it. This could be huge. The aggression from Cruz here. It feels like this feud has finally kicked into gear. We've had all the preamble. Now it's time to get serious. I'll just throw this in now as well because it comes at a random point later in the show, but Big E is eventually escorted into an ambulance, so things are pretty serious for E here. Next up we go to Seth Rollins, who comes out to deliver a promo on the stage. Rollins addresses the actions of Apollo and he's like, you know what, I can sympathize with Big E because last week that's pretty much what everybody else did to me when they just walked off while I was, trying to be motivational toward them. He says it was unacceptable, and so he and his legal team have drafted a formal document and they're going to be, taking the company to court. He says that the months and months of planning his return were ruined by a bunch of losers, but Cesaro is the biggest loser of them all. He takes no blame for attacking Cesaro last week, and he says that this is just something that's going to happen to every single person who stands in his way. He then signs off by telling us to embrace his vision, and I'm going to give this one a B. This was a great little promo here, potentially setting up a good Rollins versus Cesaro feud if they just play their cards right. And this could be huge for Cesaro. This could be, a very, very, very big platform for him to, really get some time to shine from the company, which has been long overdue. We've wanted this for years, so please, please, please just give us it. I mean, I'm not saying we specifically wanted Cesaro Rollins. I just mean, featured time for Cesaro. But yeah, Rollins' delivery was intense, deranged, and absolute gold. We then go to Kevin Owens backstage, who's approached by Edge, and Edge is like, you know what, I understand you, Owens, and I like you. You've been through hell and all you can think about is still just tearing that title away from Roman Reigns. Edge says that he would love to face Owens at WrestleMania, and this is the first of many of these throughout the night. Edge sort of interacts with almost every member, I think, of the Elimination Chamber match. Next up we go to the Riott Squad versus Natty and Tamina, and everybody's already in the ring and the bell goes the second we cut back. So this one goes a little something like this. Tamina flattens Ruby. Tamina flattens Liv. They try, bless them, they really do, and there's moments where they shine, but, Tamina's much bigger, Natty gets in, Natty's got good technical ability. It's not really until Natty and Ruby are going at it that there's a bit of a balanced playing field here. Riott Squad then hit a double team, and then out comes, of course, Billie Kay. She's wearing a Tamina shirt, and she's got little Natty cat ears on. She kind of goes to get in the ring, but goes, well, it's just teasing you, and it causes enough of a distraction for Tamina to hit her finish and pick up the win. Post-bell, Billie gets into the ring. She gets in the middle of Tamina and Natty, and she's like, yeah, we won. And they kind of just look at her, lay her out, and walk off. This gets a C+. Now, while the match wasn't fantastic, as I've said, I'm trying to find the best in all of these segments involving Billie, because I think they're going somewhere with it. It's just a very long build, and they're not quite sure of the destination yet. But at least Billie seems to be a slightly little bit more unhinged. She kind of feels like everything's starting to fall apart, the wheels are coming off a bit. She's just desperately scrambling for people to fit in with. But that being said, to get onto the match itself, Liv and Ruby looked strong, but they were of course just overpowered by the fact that, Tamina was in there just bossing it, Natty got in, and as I said, the playing field leveled a little more, but again, commentary were putting over hard that Tamina and Natty, they're from WWE legend families, so maybe this could be actually a good thing for those two too if they do it right, if they build it correctly for them. They do have a lot of ability between them. We then go backstage to Edge and Corbin approaches Edge and he's like, that's going to be the main event of WrestleMania, isn't it? It's going to be me versus you because I'm walking out of Elimination Chamber, blah, blah, blah. Standard heel stuff. But then he's like, bragging about what it's like to be king. He's got a $10,000 suit. He's got a $39,000 timepiece, not watch, timepiece. And Edge is like, oh, I've got a timepiece too. Do you want to see it? And he just whaps out his phone and he's like, see, it's got the time, it can send emails, and he just takes a picture of Corbin's face, it can take pictures, and Corbin just walks off frustrated. Next up, we have the second ever episode of Ding Dong Hello, and this week's guests are Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, and yet Bayley has still only got the one stool. God, she's such a contemptible little bastard. She actually thanks them for taking the titles off her and Banks because, she was able to drop Banks and look at me now, I've got my own show, and she's, really happy that she doesn't have to be around Sasha anymore. Nia runs Sasha down, Shayna says that Bianca's just as bad, and then out comes Reggie? So Reginald's kind of out here to defend Sasha's honor. It just seems more and more as we go on that Reggie's just a little bit sweet on Sasha, and he's starting to maybe regret working for Carmella. But he comes down, gets in the ring, and they immediately get in his face. And Reginald is quite small, so Nia is just sort of towering over him, and they're just imposingly like right in his face. It was a great little shot. He then gives his 2 cents. He's like, if Sasha and Bianca teamed up, then you just wouldn't be tag champions anymore, would you? Out comes Sasha Banks. Sasha comes out, tells Reggie not to speak on her behalf, and then says that Belair is going to choose her for the WrestleMania match. Of course, out comes Belair. She comes down, runs Reggie down a little bit as well, and then tells Sasha, the choice is mine, not yours. As they start to bicker, Reggie's like, whoa, 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 like, no, we shouldn't be fighting each other. We should not be fighting each other. We should be fighting those 3. And he points to Nia, Shayna, and Bayley. So of course Nia summons a ref, and we have Reginald, Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair taking on Bayley, Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Baszler and Belair start with Belair really leading the charge, but then Reggie accidentally causes a little bit of a distraction and Nia takes her chance. Sasha's then dragged across the ring and planted firmly in heel territory. They just grind her down until she gets out on the apron and she's able to avoid attacks from both Bayley and Nia. Reginald then gets in and he has to measure up to Nia Jax, and Nia is towering over him. Again, the shot is great and she's just screaming at him, and he tries to lock up with her and she's just like, not happening. She's like outpowering him and just getting in his face, and she's like, I am not a Franzia, I'm an expensive wine, and she launches him into the corner. Nia then proceeds to beat him down and she has a lot of fun doing it. She's just kicking him around the ring, screaming at him, planting him, but ultimately she goes for a leg drop, and of course, what does he do? He rolls out the way, and where does Nia land? Right on her hole. But she didn't do it this week, everybody. It's fine. Banks and Belair then take care of Shayna on the outside as Reggie is lifted up into a fall-away slam position by Nia. Nia's sort of fighting back, getting ready to launch him when the faces jump in, drop kick Reggie, and of course this causes Reggie to splash. He sort of crossbodies by getting kicked, crossbodies Nia, lands in a pin position, 1, 2, 3. You know what? For the promo and the match, despite it being a little bit odd and a little bit disjointed, it was fun, and I'm going to give it a B. It didn't really do much, but it kept the embers going on the Banks and Belair thing. There's just, a little bit more flavoring added to, the Bayley Banks storyline, which has been kind of lying a little bit dormant. We got some more mentions, from Bayley of how much she dislikes Banks and everything like that in the promo segment here. Of course, we've got Reginald's secret feelings for Sasha, which are clearly coming out more and more each week as well. But Bayley in particular shone here. She really did. I mean, she was working in normal clothes without shoes. She's just wrestling in socks and just general, like her promo clothes. Fine, whatever. Just didn't expect it. There is no chance I'd be out there in socks just diving out of the ring, but then I guess, that's why I'm not a WWE superstar. I'd probably be too scared of breaking a nail. We then go backstage to Cesaro, who's being interviewed by Kayla Braxton, and she asks him about Rollins, and he's like, you know what? I wasn't disrespecting him. Last week, I stayed around to the end because, I know who Seth Rollins really is, and I was hoping we were going to see that guy again, but unfortunately, we're stuck with this idiot. Edge then emerges though and just mentions that he's a bit of a fan of Cesaro, and then they tease Edge versus Cesaro at Mania, and oh my god, could you imagine how good that would be? We then go to Rey and Dom Mysterio versus Alpha Academy with the Dirty Dogs on commentary. This one's odd. It's really odd. So Dom and Gable start. There's a nice bit of chain wrestling. There's some nice back and forth. Gable's really showing off his mat game. Looks great. Otis quickly gets in, just takes it, just absolutely runs with it, splashes Rey again. Gable then gets in. There's a little bit of confusion. The referee rings the bell. Rey is just knackered from the multiple splashes. The referee rings the bell. I don't know if, because Gable's been in the ring for so long, or is Rey injured, or I don't know. Maybe it's because Gable was in the ring for so long. But Gable's still just going like, come on, Otis, here we go, lay him out, that's right. And he drags him over to the corner, and Otis climbs up to the second rope and hits another splash. And Rey has to be carried out. Even the Dirty Dogs were looking on shock. They were kind of sat there going, Rey's a legend. Like, you can't really... You don't really do that to Rey, you got to show him some respect. But yeah, this gets a C, because I'm just heartbroken, everybody. It finally happened. Our boy Otis has been corrupted. It's probably overdue though, and the teaming of Otis and Gable does work very well in terms of, the fact both of them have a very strong background in amateur wrestling, but Yeah, I mean, where are we going to take this? The thing is as well, Gable was still very much the aggressor. Otis seemed to just be going along with it. Gable was the one who dragged Ray into position. Gable was the one who got in the ring. Gable was the one who was goading him on. But maybe Otis is just starting to listen and starting to like doing what Gable tells him. We then go to Edge and Bryan backstage, and it's much of the same. Bryan gives props to Edge, Edge gives props to Bryan, and they tease that that could be the Mania match. After a break, we also see Owens, Bryan, and Cesaro backstage, and Owens approaches the pair because they're going to be on one team tonight in this match, and he's like, come on guys, game plan, and then they just start rattling off humorously all the times he's turned on his partners, and he's like, look, I understand, you know, last week in the heat of the moment, I attacked you guys, I thought you were coming for me, but you don't have to worry about that tonight, because, you know, we're on the same team, and I really want to win this match, so don't worry about it tonight, but maybe watch out for the stunner on Sunday. Yeah. And then we go to Carmella, who's been sat patiently waiting for her wine for most of the evening. And then Reggie appears with a glass of red. She asks him what took him so long, and then she starts running down the fact that he was out there helping Sasha Banks, and she's just sort of really getting annoyed at him for it, and then she takes the wine, takes a sip of it, and she's disgusted by what she tastes, and she throws it in his face. But now it's time for our main event of the evening, which is a 6-man tag match featuring all of the members of the SmackDown Chamber. On one side we have Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and Cesaro. On the other we've got Sami Zayn, King Corbin, and Jey Uso. So Bryan and Jey start off by trading strikes. Cesaro and Corbin go back and forth for a bit, and then Zayn finally brings Bryan to a halt. Corbin keeps the pressure on as they've got Bryan trapped, but then he and Zayn have a little bit of a disagreement. This leads to Cesaro getting the hot tag for an absolute cleanup, and then all the heels are dumped to the outside, and there's a little bit of a disagreement as the referee's going like 4, 5, 6, and they eventually just grab Sami because he won't go back in the ring and launch him back into the ring. Sami is caught by Cesaro when he lands in the ring, straight into the swing position, and he gets swung. And then same again for Corbin. Corbin gets in, dropped, swung, falls over a little bit into the corner. It looks like Corbin might recover a little, but then when we come back from the break, Cesaro is just spinning him round and round and round. Jey, however, puts the brakes on. He takes it to Cesaro, dumps him to the outside, launches him into commentary, launches him back into the ring, and then starts to grind him down. And the heels just work him over until he's pretty much hamburger meat here. He does manage to break free and hit a corkscrew uppercut, which allows him to get the hot tag to Bryan, who comes in and, of course, cleans house. Owens cannonballs Uso on the outside as Zayn is working Bryan over in the ring, but ultimately Bryan gets a massive superplex, rolls it through into a yes lock, and Zayn taps. Post-bell, of course, there is a bit of a brawl. Everybody's hitting their finish. Everybody's going after each other. Edge gets in the ring, delivers a spear to Uso, only to stand up, turn around into a spear from a hiding Roman Reigns. Roman stands tall as we go off the air, and I'm going to give this match a B-, you know? It was busy. It was real busy. And I understand that a lot of people aren't going to like it for that reason, but ultimately did it serve its purpose? Well, what was its purpose? Its purpose was to set up the Elimination Chamber match. Was that as confusingly paced and aggressive and, you know, just completely back and forth like an Elimination Chamber match? Not fully, but, you know, it gave us a lot of that flavor. And this is what, you know, it's what a go-home show's all about. Chamber should very much be interesting, but I still think this is an Owens win, followed by an immediate Roman squash, followed by Edge versus Roman at Mania. Overall, I'm going to give SmackDown this week a B-. I think it was a very crowded week, but it doesn't mean that's bad for that reason. There's so much going on, but, you know, it all seems to be moving in one direction at least. There wasn't anything terrible on the show, I'd argue. Like, terrible. There were some questionable moments, like the Billy Kay situation and, you know, everything like that, but it wasn't terrible. It was a great opener, but then things kind of just gently fell back into their usual go-home show mold. So it's always pretty hard to grade go-home shows because they're almost like their own thing. I think the SmackDown Chamber could also be match of the night, so fingers crossed. You know, fingers crossed it's another strong outing for the blue brand, because I like SmackDown. Do you? But anyway, this has been graded for Friday Night SmackDown. What do you guys think of SmackDown? Do you agree or disagree with anything I was saying throughout? Let me know in the comments below. Enjoy Chamber, have a nice weekend, and as always, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.